Pentagon officials are now telling the United States to prepare for war. And this is a very interesting turn of events because President Trump has always been the president who's anti-war, but now the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of War is saying we have to prepare. Now, I want to explain what he said earlier on today. But look at this. It says Pete Hegseth tells top generals to prepare for war. Why does the United States need to prepare for war? Well, for a couple different reasons. First off, it was reported last week that the United States plans on dropping bombs on parts of Venezuela in order to prevent their drugs from entering into the United States. President Trump said earlier on today that the United States has already pretty much shot down or stopped the illegal trafficking of drugs through open waters. He says there's no more boats, but the drugs are continuing to make their way into the United States by land. He says that is something we need to stop. Well, look at this. Venezuela's Maduro readies security powers in case of a feared U.S. attack. That's what we're hearing, that he is preparing for the United States to attack Venezuela. As a result, he is getting ready and he's not going to stop. He is going to ensure that his country is ready to protect itself or certain people to protect themselves. Look at this. It says Venezuela's Maduro says he's ready to declare state of emergency after U.S. military strikes on alleged drug boats. So he says they're not even confirmed drug boats, they're alleged drug boats. And yet the United States has already done a military strike on them. He's not too happy, but it doesn't stop there. I want to play something for you. Listen to this right here. This is President Trump talking today. This is part of that military ethos speech that Pete Hegseth and President Trump decided to bring in hundreds of military admirals and generals, and this is a speech. Listen to this right here.
A submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia.
So he's going to send a submarine or two over to the coast of Russia. Vladimir Putin can't be too happy with that. Let's keep listening.
Just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N word. There are two N words, and you can't use either of them. You can't use either of them.
If you aren't sure what that word is, it is nuclear. Russia continues to throw out the threat of a nuclear war, a nuclear attack. And now Russia has an agreement, a $25 billion agreement with Iran to help them with their nuclear facilities, which they've been putting back together for quite some time. But I want to show you something else. Look at this right here, because this is the real threat. It says Russia warns of escalation risk if U.S. sends Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Does President Trump want to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? Well, according to reports and from Vice President J.D. Vance, President Trump is considering it. He's considering sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine or to European countries, to other NATO nations, so that they can give it to Ukraine and then Ukraine can use it on Russia. So essentially, Russia's saying, well, if you receive something from the United States directly or indirectly, the United States is still at fault. Now, here's the interesting part. The United States does not want to go to war. According to Pete Hegseth, the U.S. does not want to go to war. However, we need to be prepared for a war as if it happened yesterday. That's what he's saying. This means, according to reports, military personnel will be trained even harder. Military personnel will be held at higher standards, and we will be ready for the next war when it begins. The one thing I have said for several years, ever since Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States has been distracted with Ukraine. We've also been distracted with what's going on in Israel. And I've been saying this because this is exactly what many Pentagon officials have been saying as well, is that we are somewhat distracted. We need to make sure that we have our eyes on the ball. We can't drop things. That's a concern because right now we are looking at Ukraine and Russia. We're looking at what China's doing because China is going to invade Taiwan eventually. Some were speculating that it was going to happen before 2028. So we have about 2 years until they do it. That's what they're speculating, that we have this open window. Now here's what we do know. Russia is helping China as well. They are training and equipping China with for a aerial invasion of Taiwan. So that's a concern. We also know the United States has plans that they're preparing to bomb Venezuela. They're just trying to figure out right now, according to reports, where they should focus their attention. Should we focus on certain drug houses, stash houses? What are we doing? Okay, that's what they're questioning right now. And then obviously Russia. What is Russia doing? How is Russia helping Iran? What is Russia doing with North Korea? These are all questions. So again, I'm bringing this to your attention because now the Pentagon says the United States should be prepared for war. Not because we want to enter into a war with anybody, but because we have not been prepared over the past several years. Again, I've been saying that. And that's true because we have seen our stockpile of weapons. It's been depleted. We've seen our ammunition has been depleted. We were giving so much, especially during the Biden administration, we were giving so much in the early stages of the war between Russia and Ukraine that we were not able to build and add to our stockpiles. It was going down. We were negative. And that's where some say, no, that's a huge concern. And then the fact of the matter is this, and this is where we could potentially be in a little bit of trouble. The United States has an obesity problem. We have a health crisis. And one of the issues with getting people to enter into the U.S. military, and one of the benefits was the U.S. military was going to pay for your college education. They're going to help you build for the future. Well, some people do that, some people don't. But one of the issues with the U.S. military is we've seen our recruitment numbers go down. We have the lowest recruitment numbers we've ever seen in our military's history. That's a problem, especially when Pete Hegseth just said today, we don't need any beardos. We don't need overweight, fat recruits. Okay, his words, not mine. We don't need those. What we need, and we don't need women that are going to be classified or pretty much trained at a lower level. If a woman can be trained at the same level that men can be, then we'll have a stronger military. Again, his words, not mine. But this is why it's potentially a problem. Pete Hegseth says the United States need to prepare for war. But the concern right now, according to other officials, that if we make it harder to train and be in the U.S. military, there's going to be less people that are capable of doing it. As a result, our numbers drop even more. So we'll see, but that's what we learned today. Again, like I said, shocking turn of events because right now we're being told, nope, we don't want to go to war, but we are going to prepare better than anybody out there because a war is coming. So I'll leave you with that, but if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. But again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.